Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So inshallah tonight we will start with Surah Qaaf and then certain ayats of the surah as well as some other surahs will be understanding. So the surah starts with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qaaf wal Qur'anil Majid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing here by the glorious Quran. And then he is responding to some statement that the kuffar are making. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bal ajibu an ja'ahum mundirun minhum. But they are amazed, they are surprised that a person who is a warner has come and he is from among them. He is warning them of the hereafter and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what are the kuffar saying? Allah is quoting, فَقَالَ الْكَافِرُونَ. The kuffar are saying, هَذَا شَيْءٌ عَجِيبٌ. This is very strange thing, that what he is promising to you about the hereafter and certain other things. And then the next ayat actually points to their surprise. Allah says, أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا ذَلِكَ رَجْعٌ بَعِيدٌ. They are saying that it is very strange that when we have died and we have become dust, we are going to come back on the day of judgment. And this is Raj'un Ba'id, this is something far reaching. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is answering by quoting their statement, قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ. We indeed know what takes away, what reduces the earth from among them, which means they keep dying. وَإِنَّنَا كِتَابٌ حَفِيظٌ. And with us is a book which is well guarded. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out in one of the ayats of Surah Qaaf that what comes into the minds and hearts of a person and how he responds. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ. Allah says, we have indeed created the man. وَنَعْلَمُ. And we know مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. What his own self, what his own heart, what his own mind puts the whispers into him. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. And we are actually closer to him than his own jugular vein, which is very close to the neck. We are even closer to the person and we know everything what is in the heart of the person. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents a scene when the person is departing and leaving this worldly life. Allah says, إِذْ يَتَلَقَّى الْمُتَلَقِّيَانِ عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَعَنِ الشِّمَالِ قَيِيدٌ. When two visitors come and visit him, and they sit on the right side and on the left side, and this is the time when a person is leaving this worldly life. Allah says, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ. He doesn't speak a word, إِلَّا except لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. There is someone who is ready to write it down. And then Allah says, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ. And then has come now upon him, the man, the agony of the death. He is leaving this worldly life, and then as soon as he leaves the worldly life, everything opens up in front of him. And Allah says, ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. This is what that you were actually trying to ignore and not believe, do things like that. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the person immediately after that in the understanding of the Quran. وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ. So there is not much time in between, and the sur, the trumpet is blown, which is the beginning of the hereafter. Allah says, ذَلِكَ يَوْمُ الْوَعِيدِ. This is the promised day that you had been promised in the worldly life. Then what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that when people will come out of their graves and they will be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then each person will be accompanied by two. Who are these two? Two angels. Allah says, وَجَاءَتْ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ. Every soul, every person, every human being, doesn't matter if he was a believer or not believer in this worldly life, he will be accompanied by 2 angels. Maha, they will be with him. Sa'iqun wa Shaheed. Allah is giving a name to each of these angels. One of them is the one who is going to hold his hand and bring wherever his destination is. It's called Sa'iq. The other one is Shaheed. Shaheed is the one who will be carrying his book of deeds and will be presented for the judgment. Allah says, لَقَدْ كُنْتَ فِي غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ هَذَا. This is what it is, that you are ignorant about this thing. So today, on the day of judgment, when your Sa'iq and Shaheed are carrying you, فَكَشَفْنَا عَنْكَ غِطَاءَكَ. We have opened up your eyes. فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمَ حَدِيثٌ. Today you can see every single fact that is going to happen. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in one more ayat, وَأُزْلِفَتِ الْجَنَّةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ غَيْرَ بَعِيدٍ. The Jannat, the paradise, will be brought closer to those people on that day of judgment who were muttaqeen, who were righteous people in this worldly life. Allah says, هَذَا مَا تُوعَدُونَ لِكُلِّ أَوَّابٍ حَفِيظٍ. This is what was being promised to you, to everyone who is returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, udkhuluha bi salamin. Enter this paradise. Dhalika yawmul khulud. This is the day when you will be living here forever. Lahum ma yasha'una. For the people will be whatever they will desire there. They will wish there. Fiha, in that gardens, in that paradise. Waladaina mazid. And we have more than that, which Allah has not mentioned. What are those things? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions one more thing in this surah. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ. Indeed, we have created the heavens and the earth. وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا. And whatsoever is in between them. فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ. In 6 days. وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ. And even the smallest tiredness did not touch us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying we created everything and we didn't get tired by doing that. Then Allah says, فَاسْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ. O Prophet, be patient what these people are talking to you, what they are saying about you, and this is what you do. And in this ayat next to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sort of mentioning the timings, how many times and when we should pray. Allah says, وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ. And do the tasbih and hamd of your Lord. قَبْلَ طُلُوعِ الشَّمْسِ. Before the sunrise. This is Salatul Fajr. وَقَبْلَ الْغُرُوبِ. And before the sunset, which is Salatul Asr. وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَسَبِّحْهُ. And in many parts of the night, that should include the Maghrib, Isha and other prayers. Allah says, وَاسْتَمِعْ يَوْمَ يُنَادِ الْمُنَادِ. Keep your ears open to hear the voice of a caller. مِن مَكَانٍ قَرِيبٍ. You will feel like he is calling, and that will be the start of the day of judgment. From very close to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna nahnu nuhyi wa numitu wa ilayna al-masir. Indeed, we are the ones who give the life and we give the death, and to us is the journey back. After that, we will recite a few more surahs, and then we'll go to the next surah, Surah An-Najm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions one najmi idha hawa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing, making a qasam by a star when it falls. When a star falls and it starts disappearing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking the oath by saying, Ma dhalla sahibukum wa ma ghawa wa ma yantiqu anil hawa. This prophet, this person who is conveying the wahyi to you, he has not gone crazy. He is fully aware of what he is doing. And wa ma yantiqu anil hawa, he does not say anything of his own desire. In huwa illa wahyun yuha. Whatever he conveys to you is the wahyi, the revelation that is being revealed to him. And this is taught to him by Allamahu Shadidul Qawa, by an angel who is very strong, and this is about Jibreel alayhi salam. And in next few ayahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how Jibreel, the Prophet ﷺ saw him in his real shape twice only. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this one that he saw on the horizon Jibreel alayhi salam, and then he came down. He came too close to Prophet ﷺ, close, فَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى. He came so close like the width of two arrow bows, and even closer. فَأَوْهَا إِلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ مَا أَوْهَا. Then he sent down the wahi, he revealed the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what was revealed to him. So these are some descriptions in Surah Al-Najm. After that we will read Surah Al-Qamar in the Traweeh tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, اِقْتَرَبَتِ السَّاعَةُ وَانْشَقَّ الْقَمَرُ. The hour, the judgment will be coming near, and the moon will split. And if they see any sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they turn away. وَيَقُولُوا سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. That this is just a magic which is being conveyed from time to time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions few other things in this surah, and then I want to spend some time, inshallah, on a very important surah, Surah AlWaqiah. But before that, we will be reciting, these are smaller surahs, so that will be recited in Traweeh. But before that, I want to mention a couple things about the Surah Ar-Rahman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. He is the one who has taught the Al-Quran. Khalaqa al-insana, he created the man. Allamahu al-bayan, and he gave him the power of speech. The bayan is the ability to convey your message in a good way, in a better way. So Allah says that we have bestowed upon the mankind this ability that he can convey the message in a very clear way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ash-shamsu wal-qamaru bi-husban. The Ash-shams, the sun and the moon are in their measured timing, they are just moving around. And وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ يَسْجُدَانِ. And the najm, the stars and the trees are making sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So after that, many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is repeating one ayat here, which is فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. I just want to explain this ayat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the word Rabb is Lord, and Kuma means two. And who are there two? Mankind and jinn kind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah addressing the man and jinn both together. So this surah and the whole Quran is also for the jinns, not only for the mankind. So Allah is directly addressing the jinn in this surah. Fabi'ayye. So which ones? Ayye means which ones. Ala means the blessing, the ni'mats, the bounties. Rabbikuma, of your Lord, you both kinds, man and jinn, tukazziban. Tukazziban is from the denying, and this is again the grammar of two. So all two kinds of creation, mankind and jinn kind, we have bestowed unlimited bounties upon you. So which one are you going to deny? Stand up and deny that I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then after that repeatedly mentions his blessings, his ni'mah, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that mentions فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. I want to spend a few minutes on the next surah, which is a very important message in it, Surah Al-Waqiah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking the man, the reader of the Quran, the reader of the surah, from one stage to another stage to another stage, and make him observe multiple things, and then he brings them back down on the earth, and then he puts him on the deathbed, and then he gives a speech about that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةُ لَيْسَ لِوَقْعَتِهَا كَاذِبَةٌ خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ. Three small ayahs. Allah says when the happening or the event will happen, which means the day of judgment will start. And there is no lying, there is no denying that it will happen. And when it happens, some will be raised, some will be lifted, some will be debased, or some will be lowered in the status. It is about the man. Then Allah in 3 short ayahs mentioned the beginning of the end of this universe. إِذَا رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّا وَبُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنبَثًّا. In 3 short ayahs, Allah says when this earth that you are living on will be shaken with a very, very great shake. A great earthquake will hit the earth, and how great it will be. بُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا. The mountains will crush, become the dust. فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنبَثًّا, and they will become like the dust which is spread all over the place. So the mountains will be gone, earth will be shaken up, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the day of judgment will begin. The people will come out of their graves. They all immediately, in a fraction of a second, all of the human beings that have lived on the earth will become alive. They will come out of their graves and they will be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At that moment, Allah says, وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. You will be divided into 3 categories. All the people will be marked with one of the 3 groups. First is called وَأَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ وَأَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ وَالسَّابِقُونَ. These are the 3 groups. Allah has given name to these groups. Anybody can belong to one of these 3 groups. Everybody will belong to one of these 3. Ashabul Maymana are the people on the right hand side. Ashabul Mash'ama are the people on the left hand side. Now this is the title for the people. It is not that physically they will be standing on the left or right, because wherever you come out of your graves, you will be there on the earth. So people, doesn't matter if from the same graveyard, 2 people will come out. One will be marked as Ashabul Maymana, one will be marked as Ashabul Mash'ama. 2 kinds. 3rd kind, as Allah calls, is was-sabiqun. As-sabiqun are those one who will be ahead of everyone in their reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first mentions who are Ashabul Muqarrabun. Ulaikal Muqarrabun. Those people who will be brought close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are Muqarrabun. Fi jannatin na'im, thullatun min al-awwalina wa qalilun min al-akhirin. This group will consist of people who will be a lot from the early days of the people who lived on the earth, and will be very, very few and little from the later part. So imagine that if we presently are living in a time where we are the later generations, then from among us, 6 billion people, very few people will belong to this group which is Muqarrabeen. But people of early days belong more to this group. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that these people will be reclining on the couches that are made of silver and gold, and they are pearl and gold stones and all those things are there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَدُوفُ عَلَيْهِمْ وِلْدَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ. The youth will be serving them whatever they want with the cups and with the serving trays and other things. The kind of drink, لَا يُصَدَّعُونَ عَنْهَا وَلَا يُنْزِفُونَ, that you will not have any headache or you will not get intoxicated. وَفَاكِهَةٌ مِمَّا يَتَخَيَّرُونَ, and there will be fruits that they will choose people. وَلَحْمِ طَيْرٍ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ, and the flesh of the birds that you will enjoy and you will desire to eat. وَحُورٌ عَيْنٌ, and there will be hur for these people, their wives and their women. كَأَمْثَالِ اللُّؤْلُؤِ الْمَكْنُونِ, they will be like they are the pearls that have been kept hiding in some place. Jazam bima kanu ya'malun, these are the people who will be rewarded for what they used to do in this worldly life. They will not speak any useless language in the paradise, but illa qilan salaman salama, only salam will be given to them. So these were the people of As-Sabiqun, the highest group, then there may be, I'm sure, the messengers and the righteous people and shuhada, all they will belong to this group. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the Ashabul Yameen, the people who will be marked as the Ashabul Yameen. They will also be in good pleasure. They will be where plenty of water will be there. They will be in a place where there will be plenty of fruits, and which will not be taken back or end ever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفُرُشٍ مَرْفُوَةٍ, and they will be sitting on higher couches. And here it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the highest group, which is as-sabiqun, has mentioned the word hur for their spouses that will be given to them. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the second group, which is ashabul yameen, is talking about those women who He has especially created for them. Inna anshana inshan. We have raised these women with a very, beautiful race. Fajalna abkaran, and we have made them virgin. Urubana atraban, and they will be very lovely women that will be granted to these people. And obviously, those will be the wives of those people who will be given in the paradise, who belong to this worldly life. Allah says this is the group of Ashabul Yameen, the people who will be on the right hand side, and Sullatum minal awwalina wa Sullatum minal akhirin. Here it's a different way mentioned that a lot of people in this group will belong to those people who lived in the earlier days. And a lot of people will belong to those people who will be living in the later time, which is probably this time now. So both of these people, kind of earlier and later, will have a large number added in this group, which is called Ashabul Yameen. Then third group, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks Ashabul Shimal. These are the disobedient, these are the kuffar, these are the mushrikeen. Allah says, what are they? He Himself tells, Fi samumim wa hamimim wa zillim yahmumim. These people will be in the smoke, in the boiling water will be thrown upon them. There will be the shade that will be like smoke. La baridim wala karim, there will be no coolness in there, there will be no other facility to enjoy in there. Allah says, who are these people in the worldly life? They were the people, innahum kanu qabla dhalika mutrafin. These were the people who lived a very richly life in this world. They enjoyed all the things of this worldly life. Now this is what is going to happen. And these people used to say, when someone will invite them toward the right path, they say, Yaquluna aida mitna wa kunna turaban wa izaman. Is it that we are going to come back when we have turned into bones and turned into the dust? We are going to be raised again, or our forefathers will be raised. This is not just the stories, we don't believe that. So that is the third group Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning. Now, briefly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put, after these verses, in front of us, He puts four verses, four questions. And knowing that we cannot answer, Allah Himself answers. So briefly, because of time, I'm just going to mention, Allah says, Nahnu khalaqnakum. We are the ones who have created you. And we have given you everything. Is there anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So why don't you think? Then Allah says, do you see, when you put the seed in the ground, do you bring the crops out or we bring the crops out? So why don't you pay attention? And then He says that you take the wood and you start the fire. Who creates the wood other than us? So why don't you pay attention to that? And Allah says, don't you drink the water, and you see that how sweet water is. If we want, we can turn this salty and bitter, then you will not have anything to drink, so why don't you ponder? So, talking all these things, reminding the person his status in the hereafter, asking these four questions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the reader of the surah back to the place where a relative is dying and laying on the death bed, and you and me all are standing around that person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes a swear, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making a qasam and saying that this is a Quran al-Kareem. Now, tell me that فَإِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ, when the life arrives to the neck, the person is about to die, his soul is about to come out, وَتَجْرَمْ وَأَنْتُمْ حِينَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ, and your relatives and your friends are standing all around him and you are watching him. Allah says, وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ. You think you are standing close to that dying person? We, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am even closer to him than you think you are closer, but you cannot see me. But if you think that you cannot do anything or you can bring the person back or nothing, try. Tarji'unaha in kuntum sadiqin. So bring him back. Stop him from dying if you think you have any power and authority. Then Allah says, now, the minute he leaves this worldly life, he is going to end up in one of those three groups that Allah mentioned in the beginning. That he is going to end up, he is going to mark, he is going to label as a Ashabul Yameen. Lucky one. Ashabul Mash'ama, Ashabul Shimal, the unfortunate one. And if he is the best person who has lived his life according to the commandments, and he sacrificed his time and wealth, everything for the sake of Allah, he is going to end up in the third group, which is the Ashabul Muqarrabun or Ashabul Sabiqun. So this is a very beautiful surah. I suggest that you should read this surah and try to understand every ayat of the surah very clearly. So inshallah we will stop. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand the Quran. Sadaqallahu azim.